What is up, guys? My name is Emiliano. Today I'll be going over how to grow bigger arms 101. Let's get right into it. Of course, when it comes to the arms, the two main muscles which build up that nice girthy arm and aesthetic arm are the biceps and the triceps, which is why here I'm breaking down exactly that, the biceps and the triceps, right? Now to get right into it, the biceps is called biceps for a reason, right? It has two heads. Now, although it has two heads, there's actually three parts of the bicep, right? It's the short head, the long head, and then the brachialis, which are all hit with different muscle groups trained in different angles. But that doesn't mean that you should overcomplicate anything. But yes, in order to grow thick, girthy, and aesthetic arms, you want to grow not just the biceps and the triceps as a whole, but every single small part of each of these two muscle groups. Why? Because although they are one singular muscle, they have different parts. Hence why, they're called the bicep and tricep. Bicep stands for two heads, and then triceps stands for three heads. But yeah, in order to hit starting with the biceps, of course, so in order to hit the short head of the bicep, you want to do exercises with where your arms are in front of your body, like typically a preacher curl or some kind of regular dumbbell curl, standing or seated. Typically seated is better. But yeah, that's what I would recommend. Either some kind of preacher curl or your regular barbell or dumbbell curl standing. Or even some kind of cable bicep curl, which is also very recommended, because any kind of cable movement is always going to be amazing because it keeps the tension throughout the movement from beginning to end, which is going to be better for hypertrophy specifically. Now, how do you grow the long head, which is the peak of the bicep, right? This part right here that gives that peak, that Arnold classic physique peak, right? You work that by doing some kind of bicep curl where your arms are behind your body, like some kind of Bayesian curl or the more typical incline dumbbell curl, which can be done, with any kind of bench or dumbbell. But yeah. Now, in order to grow the brachialis, which is very, very important when it comes to the bicep and it's oftentimes neglected because it's not necessarily ahead of the bicep, you want to do your neutral grip bicep curls, whether that is with a rope, on a cable, or the more typical just regular dumbbell hammer curl. This is my personal favorite. Now, why do you want to do this? Because when looking at your bicep from a front angle, right, that is what gives the bicep width, right? You want to have a thick bicep from the front angle as well as from the back, or the side, sorry. That is what gives that bicep width when it comes to looking at you from a front angle. But yeah. Now, one thing to remember is that the bicep is what gives the arm aesthetics, right? It's what gives that nice, arm shape, which is very attractive. But what gives most of the arm size, which I actually wanted to write down here, is the triceps, right? Triceps make up 2/3 of the arm size. Biceps only make up 1/3 of the arm size. So although the bicep play a big role when it comes to arm aesthetics, arm size mostly comes from triceps, which is why you should never neglect either of them. Now, the triceps has three heads, right? The short head, the long head, and the lateral head. Typically, here I kind of conjoined or combined. I don't think that's a word. But I combined short and long head of the triceps. Sorry, because they're typically hit with the same exact exercises, right? Usually with any kind of overhead tricep movement or any kind of movement where your arms are behind your body or they're stretched like this, you're going to hit both the short and the long head. Whether that is a skull crusher or an overhead press with a rope, that's typically going to completely destroy your long and short head of the triceps. Which is why I usually recommend on any kind of routine, doesn't matter what you do, whether you do push-pull legs or the Arnold split or whatever it is that you do, upper body, upper lower body, right? You always want to have max 2 exercises for the triceps and then 2 exercises for the biceps, right? In a singular routine. Now that doesn't mean that you're just gonna choose, oh well, when it comes to the bicep, that means I'm only gonna train the short and the short head and the long head. I'm not gonna train the brachialis. No, that means that sometimes you just need to switch up the exercise, right? It's okay to hit the brachialis only once per week, or maybe the short head only once per week, depending on what you think your strong point or your weak point is. That is how you should determine that. But max in a singular session, only do 2 exercises for the bicep, and then max 2 exercises for the tricep. You don't need more volume than that. Especially for the triceps, because like I said, the short head of the tricep is a very, very small part of the tricep, right? You can almost barely even see it. But the long head is what creates, that thickness is what builds up most of the arm. That's why you don't want to skip out on any kind of rope overhead tricep movement or your skull crusher. I highly recommend the skull crusher. But yeah, moving on to the lateral head of the tricep, which is what creates that kind of horseshoe shape, which everybody knows, can be usually hit with some kind of push down, either with a rope or a straight bar. Typically, typically, from experience and from what I hear from other gym goers, the rope pushdown is a lot better. Even though you can't put as much weight, you can't overload it as easy as with a straight bar. It is a lot easier to feel and to target that lateral head of the tricep, simply because it is a more neutral grip. It is a more natural movement. So definitely implement that into your routine. Yes or yes, meaning that you should never take that out of your routine on your arm days. You can do that one twice per week. But yeah, as long as you progressively overload with these exercises, just pick 2 of these exercises over here, pick 2 over here, swap them out every so often in your routine. And as long as you're progressively overloading, which is the most important part of any kind of routine, doesn't matter if you're doing the best exercises, if you're not progressively overloading, you're not getting stronger, your muscle is not going to grow, and your biceps are not going to grow, your triceps are not going to grow, your arms are not going to grow. So yeah, just implement that. Don't overcomplicate it. And if you guys have any questions or comments, you can leave them down in the description below. But yeah, if you want to work one-on-one with me, there is a link in the description for that. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.